Hello, everyone. This is the overview of the 2025 Ironman 70.3 Puerto Rico race, the course preview and race tips presented by me, coach and athlete Tim Gerry, with QT2. A little bit about myself. I've been with QT2 quite a while. I've coached since 2016. I raced Puerto Rico last year. They did make a slight change to the run course, so it is important to note, even if you've done Puerto Rico before, they did change the run course slightly. I've finished plenty of half Ironman and Ironman races. What we're going to go over today is basically right here, the five cornerstones, the final weeks, pre-race check-in, race day, race morning, course preview, which is where I'll try to spend most of the time on, and then the race day pacing and fueling. We go over some basic training, some restorative day-to-day nutrition. And as I go through this stuff, a lot of you are with your coaches, or if you don't have a coach, at the end is my email. Feel free to reach out with any questions if I didn't cover something specifically that you have questions about. The final weeks. So when it comes down to the final weeks, the taper 2 to 3 weeks out, it's really an important part. What happens during this time is a lot of people try to overtrain, but I just want to say, just follow your plan and don't try to make up any workouts that you've missed out. And try to simulate race conditions during training. It is an ocean swim. It's more of a bay swim. It's pretty calm. I would consider it much more like a lake swim, a calm lake swim. The biking, it's a lot of aero. The run is hilly, and there's plenty of sun and heat and humidity out there for sure. The QT2 heat protocol, we're still a couple weeks out from the race. I would highly recommend trying to do a little bit of that. If you don't know what that is, like I said, please reach out with any questions about what that might be. Training for your race targets, your heart rate, rate of perceived exertion, pace, and power. Heart rate due to the heat and humidity, talk to your coaches because typically with the amount of heat that will be there, your heart rate will be elevated for the zones that you've been working in. So it is important to kind of go over those things and kind of nail that so you don't over or under pace yourself early on in the bike and or the run. The final weeks, there's no fitness gains here. I always say the work is put in on those cold days or those days when nobody's looking months and months before. It all too often people try to prove that they're in race shape the final weeks, and they definitely overdo it in terms of power and pace because they're actually starting to feel good as well. So don't panic, don't overtrain, err on the side of recovery, rather to be sharp than overworked. Final weeks of nutrition. Fluid intake is super key. Nutrient density food. As you get there, if you get there early to there, the hydration is going to be important, especially if you're coming from a colder weather area. I live in the northeast of the United States, so it's been high of 20s and in the teens lately. So going to do this race, definitely need to do the QT2 heat acclimation protocols for this race. But just make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Work on your anti-inflammatory foods, and if you want your omega-3s or any extra supplements that you have, taper down on your caffeine so that caffeine really affects you on race day. And always, the one thing, just don't skip that recovery drink. Race week. So try to have a normal diet early on. It is hot, says if hot, add extra salt to meals. For sure, definitely. It's like I said, especially if you're coming from a cold area. But I found it to be hot and humid there. Not brutal, but it definitely, when you're not in the peak of summer or you're coming from a cooler area, it definitely hit me a little bit differently. So be wary of that. Plenty of fluids, sports drink. Just make sure that you're just kind of sipping on it all day long for the days that you're down there leading up into it. Make sure you have your carb load plan 2 nights before and the breakfast the day before. If you're with QT2, it's all mapped out, with our core dietitians and all that stuff, which are fantastic. If you follow that, I'm a big believer in that. It was one of the biggest things I think QT2 did for me. Was it changed how I carb load, what I ate the days before these big races, and how I fueled myself during the races. I think that is a huge part of who QT2 is, and I think it takes away all the guesswork, especially if you train with it and you train on long days with it. And stay off your feet as much as possible. Puerto Rico is a beautiful area. Old San Juan is gorgeous. You're going to want to walk down there and see all the historical areas. They have a beautiful rainforest. Send your family and friends there. Try to stay off your feet the best that you can. They do have really cool scooters that you can rent that does help you avoid walking. They're pretty cheap and they're pretty safe. The final weeks, again, just kind of going over what you do. Don't change anything is what I would suggest here. In the final weeks, keep things normal. As your training goes down a little bit, maybe cut back on some calories, but don't change what you're eating. Stay normal. You never change anything on race week or race day. The mental fitness part of it. Reduce external pressure the best you can. Focus on what you can control. That is what you're eating, when you're resting, how you're sleeping, what your plan is for your heart rate and your watts, your attitude. Trust your preparation. Like the quote says, if we have the attitude that it's going to be a great day, it usually is. You know, you plan for the worst, you hope for the best. And if you have all the contingency plans already rehearsed, then you won't panic and you'll be in a great place overall. Pre-race logistics. Okay. So definitely go over the athlete guide. I do have some things in here highlighted from the athlete guide and the race details. Make sure your bike is tuned up, and generally is the first thing, if you're flying in is to get that bike put back together and make sure it works properly. When you get there ASAP in case you need a little help. There's not a ton of areas to go for bike rides there. So you have to get up early. There are a few bike trails. But it is on the more limited side, I would say. Purchase any necessary items, bring what you can with you. The correct goggles, I think the tinted ones are there because of the sunshine are fantastic. Make sure your batteries, all that stuff, confirm reservations, all that good stuff. And throwaway shoes from the water exit if you're interested in doing that or something for your feet. It is a longer run from swim exit to the transition area. Expo athlete check-in at the Ironman Village. It's right at the hotel. A lot of people do stay at the hotel. I did not. I actually stayed right at the swim start, which is across the bridge. So it was a little crazier getting back and forth. But like I said, there's bikes and scooters there that are really easy to use so you don't have to walk all the time. There are the English and Spanish overviews. Just make sure you check which one that you want to do. Make sure you have your QR code and a photo ID. And hit the mandatory meeting. It is good to go to those and get a quick little overview in case anything has changed. Like I said, the run course based off of the athlete guide is slightly different this year. The race packet will have all its usual items in there, and they're very good about going over that when you pick it up. The day before in the final check-in, short shakeout run, bike, swim, whatever it happens to be, whatever you and your coach or whatever you've kind of planned on doing. It doesn't have to be crazy. Like I said, there's not a lot of great bike areas. The swim, though, is great. You can go in there and swim anytime. There's paddle boarders in there all the time. I found it to be a beautiful, relaxing swim for my practice swims. When dropping off the bike gear, know your transition area. Like I said, it's a longer run to there, but the transition area is very, very nice. Set out your gear. I always like to do it the day before. I do my pre-morning clothes, my race day clothes, and then I just do swim, bike, run, and I have it all right there in the kits. And then, of course, your post-race clothing. The nice part is most of the time you're pretty close to that transition area, so you may not even know those. But definitely have your race morning nutrition with you. Some extra Gatorade or water, whatever you're drinking, and a little bit of snacks in the morning. Race morning, keep it simple. Like I said, don't try anything new. As a coach, I'm a big believer on, especially my Saturday, Sunday with my athletes, whatever they're going to do on race day is what I like them to do on a lot of their key long workouts. I just think it works well. If you're on the core diet and you do the applesauce and the banana, it was easy enough to find there. I did find it at the stores, all that stuff. It wasn't a big deal. Just again, I wouldn't try it again on race day. I like to try these things and have your athletes try them beforehand. So just make sure you're doing that. Sip on your s'mores drink all morning long, and then that gel 15 to 20 minutes before race start. Parking, there's quite a bit amount of parking there in the morning. Like I said, I came from the other side where there was a lot of hotels as well. So a lot of us were using the scooters to go back and forth, which did save our legs because it is a little bit of a walk on the way over and back. But if you're staying at that hotel where the transition is, it's a 100-yard walk to the transition area. It's really nice. And transition opens at 4:30 to 6. And then when you're done with transition, it is a little bit, I would say I don't know if it's a half mile, but it's a good distance back over to the swim start. The sidewalks are great. But again, I would recommend a scooter or any other way to get over there. But definitely give yourself some time to walk over there and relax. And there is a place to swim before the race. So race day, general course overview. Here we go. Swim starts. It's at a small little beach area just over the bridge. You can swim there if you get there early. Like I said, it's a rolling start. It's self-seated based off of when you think you're going to finish. You enter the water in a nice little sandy area, and it's a point-to-point swim. So just remember, it's not a loop. It is a point-to-point, as you can see over on the right. It does start in that kind of like little bay area. It goes under a beautiful bridge, but there is plenty of space to do a swimming beforehand, and they allow it. They at least did last year, which was fantastic. And the bridge gives you for spectators, a nice overview. The bike, it's mostly flat. There's a couple little hills based off of the bridges that you have to go over. I thought the roads were in really good condition, except for some of the spots over the bridges where, they expand and contract, or there's a couple of sketchy areas. But other than the bridge areas, I found the roads to be in extremely good shape. The run is super hot and hilly, but it's beautiful. I found the whole course to be one of the more beautiful courses. I really liked it. And the one thing about the run course, and I'll mention it now and I'll mention it again, the spectators, one of the best 70.3 spectators on the run that I've ever done. They were fantastic throughout the whole entire time. It's a 6:55 race start. You can see the swim course, like I said, to transition. It's a pretty big area to stand around and hang out with. Plenty of places to sit down and stretch and relax with your family. The bridge that goes over, it's a great place to spectate, and you get to see both times, and you can still get your way over to watch the people come out of T1 and get on the bike. So don't think if you catch that swim at the bridge that you're not going to get there. You will. Swim temperature most likely is going to be non-wetsuit legal. Don't hold me to that. You can still wear a wetsuit for a different amount of temperatures, but slots and awards you will not be affordable. I thought the water to be very nice. And so there is the swim. You just see it. You got a little turn. You swim out a little bit. You got a quick turn. And then as you're coming back, you go under the bridge, and then it's a little left to a area where you're going to take a left and you're going to come upstairs. So right here, you got your buoys on your right. It is an ocean swim. It is protected by the harbor, so it's not wavy at all. There was a little chop, but not really much at all. Again, it's going to depend on the weather for sure. And it is beautiful weather. But once you go under the bridge, it's a good left hand, not a hard left, but it's a solid left over to the stairs for the exit. The race day pacing. Just be realistic about your time. If you're doing a non-wetsuit compared to a wetsuit, it does change your time a little bit. I would say, a minute to a minute and a half is probably a realistic time to a slower with a non-wetsuit. If you're anxious, go to the back. There's plenty of space off and to the left. If you're nervous, you're going to get bumped and hit like a little bit, but I found it to be, a pretty mellow swim. And I find now that you do self-seeding, the races are much easier at the start of swimming than when they used to be mass starts or age group starts. Increase your kick at the last 100. I would say as soon as you get underneath the bridge and you're getting off to the exit, that's when you want to start to kick a little bit to kind of get that blood flowing back to your legs, because you are going to have to stand up and run a little bit. Once you're under the bridge, though, in the morning you could leave some shoes or something. There's a whole area. I would just make sure you know exactly where you put them, because there are a ton of shoes there. It's not a padded run over to transition, so don't expect a mat like they have at some areas. There was not one there, but the roads were smooth. They were clean. It wasn't really sandy. There was nothing sharp. I ran barefoot, and I'm kind of a baby, so and I still found it to be totally fine and okay. The race day bike course overview. So I love the bike course. I'm not always a huge out to a double loop and back, but I found this course to be very fair and 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 beautiful. If you look at the course overview, what happens when you come out of transition, you kind of go up a slight hill for a little bit. It's not bad at all. Um, and then you kind of you take a left and you go down this slight downhill. I think this is a great opportunity for you to get your fluids and your calories in until you kind of start racing. It gives you a couple minutes. So, when you come out of transition, you are pedaling uphill a little bit. It's not a steep hill, but you are up. Your heart rate's going to jack up from, remember, your highest heart rate's going to be in T1, right? You just swam, you were horizontal, now you're vertical, now you're running. Now you're getting on your bike. This is when your heart rate is most likely going to be the highest it's going to be for the day. So once you get up to that hill and you take that left, it's a great opportunity to let your heart rate settle, to breathe, to relax. It's still a long day. You still have 56 miles on the bike. You still have a half marathon to run. Get your fluids down, maybe calories if you want them. But I would suggest that you just kind of relax here, even spin. Don't try to stomp on your pedals and make up time if you thought you were behind on a swim or you're in a place you don't want to be. I really feel that this little section is a great opportunity to set yourself up for a good day or a great day if you relax on that little bit of downhill section leading out to the highway. Like I said before, the highway you take an out and back. It's I have it on here. It's approximately, I can't remember exactly the number. Let me go back. Sorry, off the top of my head. It's right in here. Mile 12. You got about 12 miles out till you get to the double loop out there. It's highway. It's except for going over the bridges. Like I said, I thought the roads were good. They were smooth. It's a little windy, but it's a little bit hotter than you think. So definitely make sure you're hydrating. Here you go on the bike overview. Just a little bit more details. There's a couple turns. Just be careful on those bridges. That's all I want to say. But once you get out to mile 12, you get that double loop. It is absolutely stunningly gorgeous out there with the houses and the ocean. And last year, the breeze was actually not bad at all. I found it to be a fast course. The road surfaces out on that double loop are fantastic. The turnaround areas are wide enough. It's not super tight. I found it to be adequate. I thought the aid stations were pretty good. Um, some are better than others, but I thought them to be pretty good. But stay within yourself to mile 12 to that double loop. Feel the first loop, knowing what you're going to do on that second loop. I always like to say, be a little under on that tailwind, and then you might have to go a little over on into the wind. Um, but that double loop is at 20 and 29. You start the second loop. Do not fall behind on your fueling, please. Uh, Between the heat and the humidity and other things, make sure you're staying hydrated. Um, and on the way back, you hit all those same bridges again. So you're going to have a good idea what you're up against. And it's a good solid ride back. The double loop, I found on the second time around, it got a little congested at the aid station. So just be careful on the double loop, depending on where you are in the race, whether you're at the beginning or the middle or the end. The second loop can get a little spicy, I guess I would use in the aid stations. So just be careful there. Of course, you're pretty much arrow the entire time. Okay, and it's very well marked for where you take back into your second loop and where you go back to T2. Okay, that is very well marked. So don't get nervous that you're not going to see it or you're not going to feel it. There's big signs, people pointing. I was nervous myself last year, not knowing, but it's very well marked. Feel very comfortable that you will be pointed in the right direction. Here's a little bit of that bike course again. So when you come out of the transition, if you notice, you know, you got that first left and then the second left. That little section is the part I talked about, that little downhill to kind of mile one, mile two. You can kind of breathe a little bit. I would say about mile one, actually, you get that kind of, you get like about a half mile section where I talked about just relaxing. And then, you know, two, three, four, five, those are, you hit those bridges, and then you kind of get out into the other part of the highway. Um, it's a very fair course. The hills are kind of the bridges, to be honest with you. But like I said, found it very fair. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to talk to you anytime about the bike course. Race day fueling, based off of their website, and again, who knows if they haven't changed it or not. I know everybody's gone to the Morton and the other things, and but still on their website for this race, it's saying the Gatorade with the Sport Stop and Fruit Punch and Cool Blue. I will tell you that was what it was last year, so I don't know if they just haven't updated it yet. I will tell you, Fruit Punch and Cool Blue. I don't know about you. I was not prepared for that out on there. I'm used to lemon, lime, and orange. Definitely hit me a little bit different. Um, so definitely ask about that when you're down there to make sure what is out there, and then you're going to have to plan accordingly for what you're going to have to bring out there. But they definitely had the water, they had the Pepsi, they had the bananas and the oranges, okay, on the bike aid stations. But the fruit punch and the blue cola, if they're still going to have that, it does come across a little differently than your orange and lemon lime that you traditionally get out there. Aid stations are 14, 15 miles apart. You might have to bring your own if that's the case. Just like I said before, be heads up, especially on that double loop in the aid stations. Okay. Bike on the heart rate. The second half is going to be 2 to 3 beats higher. Again, based off of what your coach and you come up with, or if you have questions or suggestions. But also realize, because of the heat and humidity, your heart rate is also going to be up with the same effort, a couple beats. So you're going to want to be cautious early on. Same with the power meter. So your power, you know, with the wind and all that other stuff. But you know, your normal Z1, Z2 power is going to elevate your heart rate in that heat a little bit more than it usually does. So it's going to feel a little bit harder, maybe a little bit different. So just be careful with this. Um, Pace will be affected by wind, heat, and nutrition. You definitely have to stay up on the hydration and nutrition out there. You know, especially if you swallow some salt water and different things like that. Rate of perceived exertion, you know, I like to think closer to, you know, the 6 to 8, probably until you get to the double loop, and then you're probably more closer to the 8-ish part on the second double loop, and then however you're feeling on the way back in. But you're able to really keep pedaling, and you're able to keep steady and consistent power through the course of the day, and heart rate. There's not these huge uphill, downhills. It's a pretty steady, even race. Tri bike is your best bet. They're just it's a pretty flat arrow course, but if you don't have a tri bike, it is what it is. Wheel choice. Again, I err on the side of comfort and experience. Me personally, I ride 60 millimeters no matter what. I know some people are, you know, full disc in the back and thicker. You know, it all comes down to what you own and your personal preference here on your tri setups. Okay, penalties, same as they always are. Here's just a quick overview. If you don't, it's always in the athlete guide. They always highlight it during the athlete briefings, the mandatory athlete briefings. But just definitely make sure that you're not drafting, that you're the correct length behind people on the bike. And then in the transition, I mean, in the aid stations, excuse me, just be super careful that somebody's not braking in front of you. Make sure that you don't swerve really hard left or right near those stations. You know, so you're getting into an accident. I had an unfortunate athlete, you know, somebody braked in front of him. He wasn't paying attention. He ended up breaking his collarbone. But I'd also say, as you're coming up on people, if you are passing people, to let them know on your left, be a courteous rider out there, and that will help you stay safe and away from penalties. Race day run course overview. The race day, the run, it's hilly. I'm not gonna lie to you. Last year, it was 2 loops. It looks like what they did, if you've run this before, at the end of the second hill, they used to bring you along the coastline. And I actually, it's a long section. It was like over 2 miles without a water station out there. And it was because of the ocean and it was a historic area. So it was just a long turnaround. And it looks like they got rid of that section based off of what I'm looking at and seeing. Um, so just know that you get to run up those hills 3 times rather than twice, and that will definitely affect your pacing and your time and your heart rate. The crowd support, unbelievable. I just couldn't believe the number of people that were there and the cheering that was going on. It's such a beautiful place. Um, but also for your family and friends on the 3 loop run course, if they get out there to mile one, the potential to see somebody 6 times on a run is fantastic on that 3 loops. You get to see them out, back, out, back, out, back. It's great for, kind of breaking up a run. You get to see your loved ones or family or friends a little bit more. Manage your pacing. Don't surge or push too hard too early, especially up the hills. Keep it steady. If you have a stride power meter, stick to your power numbers. If you have your heart rate, realize that you're probably going to go up 1 heart rate zone going up a hill. Try not to go up 2. Um, I would say not until the 3rd loop, really race those hills because the hills are fairly steep, decently long, and they take a little bite out of you, especially in the hotter weather. Just mentally take 1 lap at a time. Uh, Enjoy it. Like I said, there was plenty of water stations. There was people spraying water out there. There was ice and ice bags, which I thought was fantastic. They were putting them in plastic bags all around the course. You would get a plastic bag of ice, which was great rather than just cubes. There's not a lot of shade out there. And don't skip the hydration stations. And what I like to say is, pour the water over the top of your head, the back of your neck. If you splash down your face and down the front, it tends to run down into your shoes a little bit more to create blisters and other issues. So if you can kind of keep that water to the top of your head, back of your head and neck and back area, it tends to save your feet in the long run on that. But when you get into T2, kind of going backwards a little bit, when you're getting off that bike and getting into T2, it's a nice long straightaway. There's a couple speed bumps in that area, and timing chip areas. Just be careful in that area. A lot of people are just trying to pass people in the last 400 yards. It's a narrower area. No need for it. Get into transition, get out. You kind of run around up a hill, down a loop, and then you're back out onto this course. The run course is, except for the hills, is pretty steady. It's a little rolling, but very beautiful. If you look at here's the new run profile. As you can see, it's you're running out of T1, and then the first little hill, second hill, then you kind of go down the other side. You're basically just looking at doing it a bunch of times. They're saying it's about 644 feet. It's a fairly hilly climb over 13 miles. Okay. Um, Race day run fueling. I put this on the bike. They look like they have some lemon lime, fruit punch orange out there, the base gels. Again, this is what they had last year. I'm not quite sure if they changed over, so definitely something that you want to check in on as you go. I did not see, there was ice with bags out there. I didn't see a lot of sponges. You might have to carry your own if you want to. Use water over your back. Stay cool. The cooler you can stay, the better off you're going to be using water and ice on this run course. The run pacing. Okay, it's going to be 5 to 10 beats a little higher than your bike, and hopefully if you've paced your bike correctly and you have hydrated and fueled correctly, you're going to get off on this run, and then this is where you're really going to start to kind of reel people back in. It is hot, so stay cool. Stay even on the hilly part. Don't overdo it on at least the first loop and a half. And it's going to be awesome. I really enjoyed the run course, even though it was hot and brutal. Just make sure you have sunscreen. I would suggest a hat if you're not typically a hat person, and sunglasses because it is extremely sunny and bright, especially near the water sections. The mental part of this, and I would say this goes back into training as well and the days leading up to it. Focus on the things that you can control, okay? And that is staying calm. That is your swim pacing. That is your heart rate on the bike. Um, that is staying within a certain zone, maybe on your power, but your attitude and your fueling. If you can remain positive, even if things aren't going your way, if you can maintain your nutrition, don't get distracted by other things and lose track of getting your fluids in and getting your calories in. If you can focus on the things you can control, overall you'll end up having a better day. From a side note, from a personal experience, I did Syracuse 70.3. Man, probably was probably 7 years ago. Um, I've only had one penalty ever. I missed a cone going around a corner, and it happened to be a bike penalty person behind me. I got a penalty there, which I'd never gotten a penalty ever, knock on wood, in my life. I got off on the run. I was behind where I thought I should be. I got to the first Santa can, used it quickly. I started running. My pace wasn't where, and I honestly, I was like, oh, why am I even doing this? And I just said, I'm just gonna dial it in. I'm just gonna do what I can, focus on what I can focus on, get my heart rate back under control. Um, and lo and behold, by mile 3, my legs were back. 4 and 5, I started catching all the people, and 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 I ended up winning my age group. Even though I was really far behind, it was a hilly course back then. Um, so just stay positive. Even if you think you're not where you should be, other people are thinking the same thing. So if you can be mentally stronger than all those other people, that's to your advantage. I always like to say the harder the day, the harder the elements, the harder the course, the better I'm going to do because I'm going to be mentally stronger than all the other people that are going to get caught up in their pace or their watts or their heart rate and all those things, where they think they should be running, 8-minute miles, but they're running 8:10s. And so all of a sudden they just blow up because they get out of themselves. And what they don't realize is it's a hot day and it's a windy day. And 8:10, it was probably like running a 750 for them. Um, so really stay on target, stay focused, stick to the plan. Okay. Have contingencies for all your plans, right? So there should always be a contingency for everything that's going on. Okay. Let the outcomes happen on the second half of the run. Okay. If you're feeling good after the first loop and a half, yeah, go for it. Okay. But before then, focus on what you can focus on. You have no control over what everybody else is doing. And a lot of people, if you can stay inside yourself and stick to your plan, then you're going to pass those people in the last half of the run when they're falling apart because they didn't hydrate, they didn't fuel correctly, or they didn't pace correctly, and you're gonna run them down. Okay, be who you are and show appreciation for the supporters, volunteers, family, and friends. There, I thought that Puerto Rico was fantastic, and the finish of the run was super cool. You do a loop around transition, and then you come on a bike path, and you run kind of in between this little valley area coming up into it. It's a little bit of an uphill finish to this nice grassy area. I found it to be very beautiful. Time cutoffs, just to go over quickly, you got about 8.5 hours. Swim, you have about an hour and 10 minutes. Bike, 5:30. The times are there for where you need to be on the second loop of certain things, where you have to be past certain parts on the run and the bike. Race day spectators. So you have the athlete tracking app, which has gotten so much better over the years. It really has taken courses and elements and things into account. I have found it to get better and better. The algorithm has gotten better and better. Have pre-agreed locations. The swim, I think it's the bridge is fantastic. So if somebody stands with you until you get into the water, they'll have plenty of time to get to the bridge and stand where you're going to swim under, and then you're still going to have plenty of time to get over to T1 to watch you exit on the bike. The bike, there's no spectating, to be quite honest with you. They're going to bike out. You're you're just going to enjoy the time it takes them to get back, and then you get to watch them ride back in. And then, but the run is the bonus with the 3 loops. They're going to run right by you, and if you go out, a half mile to a mile is where the turnaround is for the 3 loops. then you're going to see them, you can see them 4, 5, 6 times. And they will, I know you guys, if you have people there, you see somebody 4 or 5 times, it does give you a little boost of adrenaline to run a little faster, for a little bit better, and look a little bit better. So the run, there's plenty of places along the run to spectate and see all these fantastic people. Post race. So you get your bike and your gear check out. You have your time frame. You need your wristband or the ticket to get out. I have beautiful pictures of my kids right after one of my races. They wore funky outfits for me, so I would see them. And come back to cheer. I always like to sit at the finish line for a little while and cheer, or go out on the run course and cheer, or cheer people coming in off the bike, or whatever it happens to be. The slot allocation is right there at the hotel. I would suggest, it's not a huge area. I would suggest getting there earlier, especially if you want a seat and sit up near the stage. There's definitely not a lot of area there. I was there last year. It's not overly packed, but it's not a huge area for sitting. So there's a lot of people that'll end up standing. So if you want to sit, definitely get there early. Slot allocation, roll down. Just make sure you're paying attention to all that stuff if you think you're going to get a slot or a roll down slot. And questions. So I'm Tim Gerry, tgerry at QT2 Systems. There's my Instagram if you want to follow. And then you can follow us at QT2systems.com. I hope that you truly enjoyed the course overview and preview of the Puerto Rico 2025 70.3 Ironman. I try not to overtalk, so I do highly suggest reaching out. Email me, please email me any questions, and we can get on a phone call and we can dial anything that you have in, based off of what you're doing, what your coach thinks, or if I just kind of missed something that you feel is very important. I'd be more than happy to go over it based off of my experience last year at the race and based off of my many years of coaching fantastic athletes. And with that, I do appreciate you watching. And if you're racing, I wish you the best of luck, and we'll be cheering you on from nice, cold Massachusetts.